Okay, well, morning. That was easy. So today I'm going to talk about large language models and artificial intelligence in general in the human resources world and what I think is coming. So let's just get started here. Just so that you know, I'm the department chair of the computer science department at Saginaw Valley State University. I started my career as a computer programmer, and I went to look for a job at a recruitment agency, and they hired me to be a recruiter. So I found other programmers. The third person I ever placed in my life was the guy who sat at my desk. So anyway, the one that I had left. I worked in that industry for 20 years, and I worked on all kinds of different problems. I worked overseas for a while. I was in Korea for 3.5 years. But then I decided, well, actually, the 2000, the dot-com bust kind of busted my time in the recruitment business. And so I got back into computer science where I'd started. I got a PhD in computer science, and for the last 10 years, I've been teaching people how to program. So that's my background. So I spent a lot of time in one narrow area of HR, recruiting. But I'm really a computer guy right now. I think the rest of you might be interested in what everybody else is using in terms of AI tools. If you're one of those people that likes to take polls and everything, there's a 3-question poll. You can QR code, put this on your cell phone and snap a picture and answer those questions. But just while we're doing that, how many of you use ChatGPT or some other LLM every day? Almost everybody. How many of you think that you're pretty expert in it? How many of you think there's a lot that you think that you could be doing with it a lot of people think that. Okay, good. Well, then you're in the right place, because what I want to do today is I want to do a live demo. So if you have any particular problem in the back of your mind, it's like, I want to know how to do this. I've got this nasty spreadsheet and I want to streamline it into some text file, or I have some picture that I want to, I have a whole bunch of pictures and I don't want to license them. I want to make video or whatever it is that you want to do. Let me, get that file that in the back of your mind when we get to the live demo, we'll do that. So let me tell you a little story about when I was a recruiter. One time I went to a customer's office and I was going to meet the manager about the job description. And there was a person in the reception area and she was typing by tapping her keyboard spacebar. Just tapping that spacebar. And I was like, what the hell are you doing tapping the spacebar? I was sitting in the lobby. But I'm one of those OCD people that it annoys me when it happens, right? So I go up to the receptionist. I say, look, because I was waiting for my appointment to start. You don't have to do that. You can use the tab. You can use the tab character. And she goes, I know, I'm a like 80, 90 word a minute typist. I know everything about tab characters, but these dang computers, it doesn't, I want to tab it to this place and that place. No, you can set the ruler and you can put all these tabs. This is back in 1990. This is a long time ago, right? And so, and she says, wow, this is really, this is great. And I showed her how to do that. She goes, wow, I don't have to tap anymore. And then she was hitting the carriage return, to get down to the middle of the screen so she could send her text on the page. So you don't have to do that. You can also set vertical tabs, right? You don't have to do, and I was like, I was thinking to myself, this is a really good typist, but she's not getting the most out of her experience. Let me tell you another story. When I was getting my PhD, over the years of getting the PhD, I had to collect all these citations. And mind you, this is back in 2014, 2015, in the old days, right? I typed them all into these notepad files. Sometimes I wrote them, but mostly they were typed in. And there's hundreds of, like 600 citations. And it was a big job. Usually it's the last thing you do when you're finishing your dissertation is do those dang citations because you don't know where everything's cited anyway. So my son was looking for a job. He was kind of unemployed. So I said, look, I'll give you $10 an hour if you'll do all these hundreds and hundreds of citations. And they have to be in perfect IEEE format too, by the way. It's 2015, 2014 maybe it was. And I said, well, how much you pay me? He said, I'll give you $10 an hour. Because that's not very much money. He said, well, that's what I'm going to pay. And then he goes to his bedroom and he comes back and he says, hey, I feel bad about charging you $10 an hour. It's going to be $100. Let's just agree $50. $50. I said, it's your funeral, right? And I said, okay, $50, flat rate. He goes, okay, I'm done. You're done? Yeah, I found a website where you just put a file, upload it, and it puts it all in IEEE format. And I said, well, there you go. Here's a person who cannot type, who has very little skills in anything, but he was able to get the computer to work for him. And I think that is a an unskilled person with the right tool can do a lot. I didn't even know. It was a new thing. It was a new thing at that time. So what I'm going to argue today is that there's been all kinds of technological change and in the past. Some of it's similar to what's happening right now, and some of it's not. But right now, we're seeing some completely new things. It's changing the way the work is done. All you guys use it, and none of you used it 3 years ago because it wasn't out 3 years ago. So that means we've had something transformational happening. LLMs have been created and been adapted into our workflows this fast. And what I'm going to also argue is that we need to delegate a lot of our work to automatons, including LLMs. So let's talk about the past. What has happened? And I want you to think about this. Think about your job and your friends' jobs, all the people who work for your employers. What kind of jobs do they have and what do they do? What's automatable? Let's take a look at what happened in the past. Everybody knows about the decline in manufacturing. It's no big deal, right? We know that there's been a whole bunch of changes. My screen, there you go, that took a little while. Worldwide manufacturing jobs have declined over the last 40 years, 1980 to 2020. But in the United States, it's been especially fast because of the decline in the offshoring. So basically, we've got increased productivity. Productivity's gone up, but the number of people that are doing that productivity has gone down worldwide and especially in our country. The pink group there is operations. But now let's take a look at office work. That's manufacturing work. Let's take a look at office work. Office work, you've got the typists. The whole concept of writing something by hand and having somebody type it isn't a thing anymore. That's not a job anymore. It's just gone. It doesn't even exist really. You don't hire a typist. Nobody goes around saying how fast they type anymore. It used to be a big deal back in the 80s. That was still, people talked about that. We're all typists. Everything's written in by keyboards from the get-go. So we don't need typists anymore. But the question I would ask you is, did computers steal typist jobs? Not really. It's just the whole paradigm of the way that information was recorded initially and transmitted changed. Another one is journalists. Journalists used to see those old movies, where they're typing, clicking their stories and everything like that. Well, what happened to the number of journalist jobs? I remember people who were going to college to get journalism degrees. It's not just the typing. Why do you think that these journalist jobs died out? They split in less than half over a period of 20 years? Because people started getting their news from the internet. The pink group there now is the internet news sources. That news maybe should be in quotation marks, but it's people just didn't want to read newspapers anymore. I mean, I remember when people were saying, well, oh gosh, you got to have a newspaper, and what's going to happen to journalism? Well, everything they said happened, right? Yeah, there's no more newspapers. People don't use them except to wrap fish, and the jobs went away. And the journalism, if you want to call it journalism, changed. The quality of that journalism. So this is all fine and dandy, but well, I guess we should also take a look at did the revenue for these type of things go down? No. There's more advertising revenue than ever before. People would, I remember when I started recruiting, we put ads in newspapers to go get people. Because people still read them back then for jobs. They would get the newspaper just from the classifieds. For you young whippersnappers, that might seem impossible, but yeah, we didn't have career builder, we didn't have that back then. This, I mean, you can run an ad, you call up, oh, Jesus, 7,000 for the Detroit News, but it's only like, $150 for Flint Journal. Let's try running it in Flint and see what happens. But ad revenue actually increased. More people are consuming more media and probably more news. I don't know about that, but they're definitely consuming more media and eyes and clicks were on, we're very active. But the difference, what was the difference? In the old days, you had a distribution channel that required huge capital investment, right? You couldn't just go and make a newspaper. You had to be a big company to produce a newspaper, right? And so when you hired your journalists, they had a lot of sway. They had a lot of pull, right? Because they were the ones whose voices were famous in those newspaper articles. You couldn't have everybody writing a news article. It was impossible. Now everybody and his brother can write a news article. But then you had journalistic standards that were more commonly talked about. Today, we don't have any kind of concept of professionally curated news. It's not a thing anymore. The regular lay population doesn't talk about it. And I'm using these examples because we're going to get to the manufacturing point. This is the most reliable source we have regarding employment. It's the FRED database, Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's the most authoritative source. And there probably are other sources, but this is from 1992 until in 2024. The year 2000 is when the internet started really being a news source. 2020 was when COVID hit. What do you think? Do you think that manufacturing jobs are going to go back up to where they were in 2020? I got a bad feeling that some of these jobs are going to go the way of the typists and the journalists, including ours. Sorry, you can be depressing. I mean, I foresee that what's happening with the change in technology for AI, which is to attack the knowledge worker. I think that might be a model that's going to follow some other patterns that we've seen in the past.
Do you believe that in Michigan, or you're saying national?
I think worldwide. I mean, all the big employers have executive vice president in charge of losing people's jobs. They all have them. Small employers don't have that yet. But in order for us to be competitive, we have to be able to be on the same level. Actually, we have more ability to do it because we're more nimble, right? Which we can change faster than they can. They'll have a department saying, let's train everybody in AI. And they'll take all those typists and they'll train them on how to use Microsoft Word. And then they'll have a whole bunch of people trained in Microsoft Word. But what we need is a lot of young whippersnappers that just say, oh, this is just how I do things. Right? That's the model of employee that is going to be more effective when we have extremely rapid change. It's a really good question. Think about it. Right now, I mean, how many people can't use a computer, can't use a mouse? I have lots of friends that don't use computers. They hate them. They don't use email even. They're not, young people, how do you not use email? That's how everybody talks. It's very generational. Now, some people love to change, and they're always doing that change. But if you have employees, if you're HR people, how many of you are HR people? More than half. So how many of you are straight up manufacturing operations type people? Okay, so we go to half and half. So basically, it's the same in HR and operations, but it's for the white collar jobs, for the knowledge workers. That's the difference. Yes, sir.
Before you do that,
Yes, sir.
Michigan is seeing a significant population reduction.
Sure.
That's continuing every year. You factor that in when you look at your numbers.
So, I mean, These aren't my numbers. These are the government's numbers. But when I'm making these predictions, there's going to be multiple factors. Like, for example, when the manufacturing decline happened, that was automation, right? At those times, that was kind of the big thing. When the internet thing happened, part of it was the people are going into the media, but there's also the aging of the workforce and the aging out. So right now we're experiencing just fewer workers of working age, right? We're an aging population. I'm not even discussing that, even though those are important factors. Those are really important factors, and that's also worldwide. The different countries are hit differently. So I'm not trying to say that this is the only reason. I'm just saying that if you take a look, at, say, typists and journalists, and even manufacturing, operations people, you can see a possible pattern for knowledge workers, not just manufacturing, all industries. So this is my kind of doom and gloom history. Sorry about that, but that's how it is. And now let's talk about what's happening right now. And this is where I want to kind of show you what you might be able to do. If you don't have any specific things, I will show you some stuff that I think is kind of cool. But let's zip over to the next slide here. And let's make sure we're clear on some definitions. AI, artificial intelligence, just means any kind of system, usually it's a software system, that learns. In other words, you don't have to program it. I teach programmers how to program programs, right? They type code and they run the code. They compile the code and they run it and they compile it and run it. Once Microsoft Word is on your computer, it doesn't change because of the way you do things, right? It stays the same. You want it to change, you got to get an upgrade or patch. If it was an AI Microsoft Word, it would know which menu options you used, and it would start removing unnecessary ones from the menu option. And it would only highlight the ones, it would put the ones at the top that you're most use the most. The software would adapt to you. That would be a learning piece of software. Artificial intelligence. Now, machine learning, like for example, the way that chess games and Go and all these other famous things have been solved. They'll just take one machine, play against another machine, they just play each other until they can beat every human in the world. So now no human being can beat chess, no human being can beat Go. Even the best people can't do that. They thought that would never be possible. Some people said that. I don't know if they thought it or not. But the point is that it's using real world experience. Like I drive a Tesla, it makes corrections, it tries to make turns and then learns to not do that turn because of reality. It doesn't. Sometimes I'll take it out of it and disengage it, and then it'll know not to do that next time. It learns. It's AI. It's machine learning. LLMs are not machine learning. LLMs are pre-trained. So a large language model just means you have this massive amount of data. And inside this data are all these words that follow each other. This word follows that word, and that word follows the other word. And when you see chat GPT, right, it's generative pre-trained transformer. It's pre-trained. So it already knows. The intelligence is built into the language model. All the people talking and all the things that they've got, that's where the intelligence is in. It's not learning anything new unless you add more data to it. So it's a little bit different from a machine learning. And then an AI agent is one of these things, either an ML or an LLM, that makes decisions for you. Those exist, by the way. So you could have you might have a secretary that collects and find out when's everybody available and get a schedule and map it all out. But you can also create a virtual website out in the cloud, and it sends out the emails, it gets all the other, it keeps a record, and you can go check in on it anytime you want, but it's just living out there by itself. That's AI agent. So it makes decisions. If you want, you can set it up so that it checks with you before, let's say, it buys something. So you can have one that is shopping for you. We'll get to that later. Okay. Last but not least, we have a thing called an AI model, which is what most of us are familiar with. Large language model. Model is just it's basically a design, a pattern model, engineering, manufacturing model, car model. This is just the way that they structure the data, and different techniques for structuring it gives different results. This right here is probably the most important takeaway of this entire presentation. If you don't understand this right here, and by the way, if you want to grab a great picture of this, you can go to metr.org. That's where I got this slide from. metr.org here. These researchers are trying to figure out how fast are these AI tools improving? Because we know that they're moving so fast you can't keep up with it. You know, really, almost all of our jobs, we're running and running and running and running. I go to see my doctor, he's running from patient to patient to patient to patient. So you're a doctor, you should be sitting around kicking back. You're a medical doctor. No, I see this person, I see they're like a robot. Well, we can't fight these machines because eventually they'll all be faster than us. What this is showing is the length of time that it takes a human being to do a task and the percentage chance that the model will be able to do the task. So what this is showing is that in 2020, GPT-3, the original Chat GPT that came out in this is 2020, yeah, it became public in 2022. They can take a 15-second task. What's the capital of North Dakota? They can take a 15-second task and they can handle that 50% of the time. So this is saying task length at 50% success rate. So if I say, well, I want to be able to ask people the capitals of states, or I want to be able to ask them, what do these acronyms stand for? 50% of the time, it's a 15-second task. I forgot what that is. Yeah, I remember ChatGPT. They'll 50% of the time the model will have the answer. If a human being can put 50%, 50 seconds. If a human being can do it in 15 seconds, 50% of the time in 2020, the model can do it. Now we're in 2025, right? These are the new models off to the right. But that's saying is that these things, depending on the level, between 15 minutes and 1 hour. You've got a task that'll take you between 15 minutes and 1 hour. There's a 50% chance that the machine can do it. Now, it won't take the machine 15 minutes or an hour. The machine will do it instantly. One of the professors in the art department is famous for his graphics. He makes these beautiful graphics. I guess he's a web graphics person, and he uses this thing called Dolly, and he also uses Midjourney. You heard those for art that make art for you. And he goes, I don't even know what my job is anymore. These things I can just tell it. I want a pointillist, Surreal-looking picture of cats and pineapples, and it makes it. No, I want one bigger. I want one wider, and I want one with on top of the Eiffel Tower. Whatever it is, it can do all that stuff. But it might take him an hour, but it can do it however long it takes. It takes a while for the picture to generate, but it doesn't take an hour. So the length of tasks that AI can perform is doubling every 7 months. There's 2 published papers on this, which you can read if you go to that website. Now, how many of you have heard of Moore's Law? Moore's Law, so the engineers. So here's the idea. In the old days, they were wondering how fast can computers be 1 year from now, 2 years from now, right? We want to write software, but we want to write software that's might take us a year to write the software. We want to write for the computers of that time. Well, this guy named Moore came up with a law. He said that computers double in processing power every 18 months. And that has been a fairly well-established rule. The computer hardware will double in speed, processing power, every 18 months. They call this the Moore's Law of AI. Crazy, right? 7 months.
Where you have in Georgia, if the speed of the computing is going at this astronomical pace, why wouldn't that instead of being 18 months, start shrinking to half?
There's a whole bunch of reasons, but one of the main reasons why it's slow to recent past is because one of the ways that they make it go faster is they make everything smaller. But eventually you get so small that you're at the width of a single molecule. and you can't make the molecule get smaller. So they have to come up with other ways to make it faster. I'm not sure if you remember in the old days, but they would have these processors. We're going to increase the clock speed, make the clock faster, clock faster, right? What happened? Every time you increase the clock speed, you increase by power of 2 to the power of 3, 8 times the amount of power that it consumes. So they call it the power wall. So they said, well, you can't increase the clock speed anymore. And then they started decreasing the clock speed and they added multiple cores, multiple processors. So you would have, if you have 10 processors, they will use less power than one big processor that's 10 times as fast because of the clock speed. So there's pipelining. I mean, this isn't a computer science class. I don't want to get into it, but there's physical reasons why we can't make the processes any faster. So we got to find other ways. Some people thought that because we got down to the 7 nanometer, 9 nanometer size chip widths, where the wires are that small, they're like, well, that's it. We can't make any improvements. Yes, they find ways to make improvements, and it stays at 18. It's like doubles every 18 months, but it's not always clock speed or increasing the powers of the cores or the threads or all that stuff. But there's the physicists and chemists. If you go look at the Nobel Prize winners, like in the last couple of years, there have been Nobel Prize winners in physics and chemistry. What have they done? Creating chemicals and physical things that make computers faster. There is no such thing as a computer science Nobel Prize. So that's how they win them. Anyway, so yes.
So bringing this back to HR director.
Yes, sorry.
We were talking about ethics in this and potentially reading people's resumes.
now
We
that's
talk
great.
about
This is perfect.
predictive
So this, as
attendance.
HR people and even as manufacturing people, you're going to have to ask yourself, as HR people, how is the employment of the organization going to be affected by this increase in power of these tools? You're probably going to need to look for employees that are comfortable using these tools, right? The HR people, but also within HR. But within HR, you're going to have to look at your own HR people to see, do they have the adaptability to adapt to these tools this fast?
Yeah, but how about the ethics involved in this? Like, where's the boundary
I'm not,
that you can
I'm not
cross?
a science guy. I'm not, that's for you guys to decide.
Okay.
Because
I mean, this could easily go into a very strange place as we're getting resumes and they're pre-reading resumes for us, or they're predicting attendance, who's going to show up today. Like, this can get into some really strange places, especially for HR directors. So I just want to hear if you have thoughts on the boundaries of what this can do.
there's a lot of debate about that. The basic problem is, how do you improve the productivity of these devices and not hurt people? That's the bottom line, right? The ethics of it is, what if it damages somebody, right? In some way, but it's going to be hard to stop it. That's the problem. All the companies want to say that everybody's trying to cut costs, right? They're trying to shave a penny per product if they can. So yeah, what are the ethics of it? I mean, that's outside of my pay grade. I'm a computer person, not an ethicist. I have my own feelings about it. I sometimes wonder when I'm teaching my students, am I automating myself out of a job? Because college professors can get automated too, right? There's so many things that can happen. But I don't see how this is going to change any more than I view my own job as like the journalist, and the world will not, the journalism will not be as good. Right.
So how about AI when it comes to like preventative maintenance and quality checks? Where do you see that going in manufacturing?
Well, I mean, that's it. Let's see. Any tool can be used for good or for bad. So there are some good things. If human beings stay in control of this tool, they can use this to make sure that quality is sustained. They can set a standard, but it would take a strong leader, right, to set these standards. So let's suppose safety is your big thing. You want to make sure that the operations are as safe as possible. You can make these tools optimized for that end result. The problem is, will that end result make you competitive against other companies in terms of profitability? That's my problem with it, right? It's not that the goals can't be achieved. Anything can be achieved. The problem is, we live in a competitive world. So competition is eventually going to drive the victory, right? People were asking similar questions in journalism. how are we gonna prevent the journalism from getting degraded?
George, what are tools that they can use in HR to help identify either even hiring,
Right. So
training?
that's good. That's, if you're looking for software packages, there's a lot of people that are trying to sell software packages, but nothing has become a standard yet. So how am I doing on time?
We've got about 7 minutes.
Oh, no. Let's do one. Let's do one. Let's pick one that you want to do. Does anybody have a problem? Maybe it could be an ethical problem. Doesn't matter what it is. Let's do a demo at the very least.
Anybody?
Anybody have a problem they want to work on?
Sure.
I could do what somebody mentioned, a spreadsheet problem. But I mean, it's something simple like that. I don't know if I can solve humanity or anything like that, but let me,
Are you
but
looking for like actual details of an issue? Like I need a job posting for.
That's-
Is that what you're looking for?
any level.
Or
right-
job
right-
description, policy.
What if you want to be sure that you make a job description that tells people or tells women that it's maybe a flexible job or it's something appealing so that women will apply? Let's say I want to be sure that I'm inclusive, or I want to be sure that this sounds attractive to women.
So here, let's try that. Let's go to, you have a specific job description in mind?
Yeah, let's just, I don't know, you could put some sort of engineer or something, or safety, quality manager, whatever you want.
Okay, let's say engineer job description. And let's see, here's an Indeed engineer job description.
So now because there's 12% of women, female engineers, let's say we want to hire one. How can we make the job description?
Let's just take this one right
Right.
here, and I'll go to ChatGPT, and I'll go here and I'll say, what's the question you want? Go ahead, fire away.
Write a job description that makes this engineering job appealing to women.
Okay, right? I'll say rewrite
Rewrite, yes.
this job description.
We want it appealing to everyone, but we want for sure to make it seem as if,
To target
yeah,
a
Well,
female.
the beauty of it is, the tool doesn't care, but you can revise your question, right?
Yeah.
You can do it 5 different ways. That's the thing. This is just the playground. So let's make the description,
You're right.
let's say more attractive. to-
Appealing.
It's really about being specific with what you're putting in.
Yeah.
The detail you give it, better answer you're gonna get.
And when you hit control or hit shift enter, you can add this text in here and it'll give us these suggestions.
use this to write.
Yeah, I use it for job descriptions, I use it for office letters, I use it to clean up my email, I use it for, I'm in the middle of going through a micro certification through ASE for AI HR. And they do talk about what's happening.
It's a big deal.
Well,
So what have you set parameters for ethics in your business?
Not yet, because as of June 1st,
Right.
I can't do that yet.
the other question I would have is who decides what the ethics are?
You have a committee.
Okay, as long as that's.
They suggest to create a board committee that
Yeah.
meets on a regular basis, and it has to happen on a continual basis, because everything is changing so quickly as you're stating. But you need to have some people that are actually, setting the rules of engagement, so to speak, for how AI is gonna be used.
Is it? You brought up ethics a few times. Am I missing something on, are people using it in a limited way that, would?
Yes. So you can just put it in a really easy way and put everyone's attendance records in there, and it will predict what it thinks it's gonna call on the work to. There's all kinds of.
So how is that,
things.
how is that like unethical? As an entrepreneur,
Wait, guys, hang on.
Meant to apply.
Wait. Now we're getting off track. We need to circle back. I can't, you guys can talk about this outside of my pay grade. You guys.
It's a hot topic.
But I'm gonna erase the emotional part and just stick to the computational part, okay? Because I don't understand a lot of that. I mean, to me, it's just words being pumped out. But I know to people who are in those places, it matters a lot. And I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. I would feel uncomfortable stating my ethical preference. I mean, I honestly don't have one. I don't know enough to be able to state it. You guys should decide the ethical issues of it, but this is what the tool does, right? This is what the tool does. And don't forget, no matter how clever your ethics are, you still got to make a dollar, right? You got to still be profitable and competitive. So while you're doing all this stuff, you got to survive because you can ethicize your way to destruction. You have to make sure that whatever the ethical thing is works. That's my only point. If you don't, it could be more costly than, I don't know, anything else. But anyway, so this idea here is we've got a job description, and this is saying that this is going to be more attractive. Let's say, why is this better? Why is this better? Broadly more inclusive, more collaborative language. So this is the other thing is now this could be what we call hallucinating. It could be giving you this stuff and it's total nonsense. But here's the beauty of it is this was faster than you doing it by yourself. This would have possibly taken you 20 minutes, but it took this one 2 minutes, right? So in the 50-50 world, it was able to do that request and make that more collaborative. Now, whether or not you agree, that's your opinion, right? Yes, I think this is right. No, I disagree. I'll say this. In 2022, November 2022, ChatGPT 3 came out. And I was one of the first people to get a paid version of it. Then 3.5 came out. I teach a course called Theory of Computation, and it was worthless. It couldn't prove that the square root of 2 was irrational. I mean, it couldn't do anything. But then 2024, I taught the same course. It did everything up through chapter 0 and chapter 1. 2025, it does everything through chapter 6. My point is that whatever thing it is that you say it doesn't do, wait 7 months. If it takes you, am I done?
No,
If it takes you half an hour, then you can probably do it. If it takes you 2 hours, it might not be able to handle that job.
you're almost done, but I have one more question.
Go ahead.
ChatGPT, you have a free version and you have a paid version. Your paid version, can you scan resumes and have it decide which candidate
Be careful.
works
uploading.
better?
Yes. Be careful uploading information because all that information is going to be used for training other things. So like we can't put, because of FERPA rules for protecting students' information, we don't upload student information up there. You can have your own private GPT, your own computer so that it doesn't go to anybody else. You can download its open source software, you can get that information. But be careful uploading things. But yes, I can take a zip file of 2,000 resumes, find me the best candidate for this job. I don't have to read them all. I can say, give me all of put the whole thing in a spreadsheet and I just want their email address and their zip code and their
You
name.
want the downloadable version, not the.
Well, I mean, you can put fake names in there if you really want to, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't upload. If you're worried about confidentiality or privacy, your policy ethics meeting needs to go and say, where's the productivity ethics trade-off balance? That's your decision, not my decision. But there is a decision to be made.
I think it's already too late for that.
I think so too.
I don't put our business name in there. I put something in there that I wanted for, and the answer popped back with our business name in it and some stats about it.
Yep.
And I thought, well, that's not even, I didn't even say that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and there's,
And they kind of do.
sometimes you ask for an image and it'll put Getty Images in there.
Right.
It's not Getty Images. It's stole from Getty Images. There's so many Getty Images that use that thing in there too.
It gave me what I wanted further than I wanted to tell it, but it still gave me the result that I actually was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me, go ahead. Did you have another question?
No.
I'm gonna zap my slides and finish. Yep, shift. What I'm trying to tell you folks is that in the Industrial Revolution, we automated manual labor out of jobs. We took a moving part A to part B type of a job, and we made a machine that did that. And nobody could do it as fast. Same as the chainsaw versus an axe, or the jackhammer versus the sledgehammer. We replaced a lot of manual workers, and we'll continue to do that. But the knowledge workers, we've always thought that, hey, they're salespeople, or they're office administration, or they're engineers, or they're executives. Those people can't be replaced. Yes, they can. But it might not be replacing job for job. It might be the skill, right? It might be just that one part of the skill that gets replaced and gets spread out. So that's why the LLMs are targeting the knowledge worker. I'm a college professor. I teach knowledge to people, but the ChatGPT can definitely do it better than my 100 level and 200 level students. Now, and that's just 2025. Next year, maybe it'll be better. So what does the future hold? I mean, there's things coming up called vibe coding. Right now, if you just say, write me a computer program, you know, let's say you're playing Sudoku and you don't like to look at the ads. Write me a Sudoku app that, or I don't have to watch the ads. I want my own Sudoku app. Write it. It'll write it for you. You don't have to know what the code is. Let her know how to use the app. Copy and paste it as this file. It'll explain how to do everything. You can do the program. You don't even need to be a programmer. That's called vibe coding. What's coming up, and this is supposed to be the year of it, is AI agents. I taught my first 1 month of lectures on this topic. They're primitive. They're almost useless right now. Right now. It will be eventually a thing where it will go out and it will prepare schedules. It'll buy things for you. The big companies like Amazon, my son works there, they're making APIs, programming interfaces for people to be able to do this with. I promise you that manufacturing outfits, big ones, are developing APIs for them to use their databases. Maybe you guys should have, if you guys have that sort of thing, some kind of data sharing thing where you have tools where you can use AI agents. If you can produce that better than the big guys, you will whip their butts. If you can't do it, whoever does it, you know, that's free. It's 24/7 working. You have people working for work people. You have these automatons working 24/7, and whatever the job is in the cloud. That's coming.
Well, that lends itself to security issues, correct?
You have no idea. Yes, yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
way agree
Well,
with it.
the security, cybersecurity and LLMs and AI are really, there's a lot of overlap problems there. And the ethics things with cybersecurity, I'm an expert in cybersecurity. It's one of my main areas. It worries me. The defenses are getting more clever, but so are the attacks. And the problem is the human is the weak link in the chain. And humans hate to give up control. I was just talking to Harry about this. You know, when I got my Tesla, I didn't want to let the car drive. I kept on trying to take control of it because I hate the way it drives. I started having to let it go. You know, it's safer. It's mathematically proven to be safer than human driving. But I'm going to let it go and let it do its thing. And by golly, you know, I got used to it. But not everybody can do that. We're human beings. We got to control freaks, right? We got to do it our way. We can't believe that a machine can do it better. But I promise you, there's things that we let the machines do. We just, the machine's going to do it. There's going to be more and more things like that. Yep, that's all.